All right, it is Whip It Friday, TGIF Friday. We have been working with a couple of clients that have had some needs for more detailed meal planning and grocery shopping, constructing their meals. So I had an idea to kind of elaborate on that in a group forum here and kind of go through some of the materials that we have to give you guys with our meal plans and recipes and show you what that looks like and everything, and just kind of touch on some maybe points to use for that. And hopefully the dogs won't interrupt me and drive me crazy because there's some thunder and rain outside. So Macy already has her thunder shirt on. I've already given them CBD. Hopefully they're just kicking each other's butts out in the living room and not interrupting this. But I thought I would go through some strategy because as I was grocery shopping, what's nice about local clients is that we can obviously do some things in person, which is an advantage. And I was structuring kind of my thoughts on how would I help somebody with lunches and breakfast, especially if you're traveling to a day job. If you have to commute somewhere, there is definitely some planning and prepping that you guys have to do that's not as that people that work from home don't have to really worry about. You know, we can go to the kitchen and cook something that we want, and it's really super convenient. It's not that having things prepped isn't helpful. Certainly leftovers and all of those things come in handy when you're working from home too, because working from home can be just as chaotic and busy. And sometimes it is hard to balance work-life balance just because you have your work in your house all of the time, you know, especially if you've got a smaller environment where your office isn't that far away, it isn't removed from sight, which was one thing we're looking forward to when we move on to our house, is that offices will be totally out of sight, out of mind kind of thing from the main living space, which will be nice. So I just figured, like, let's talk through it. Let's talk through, like, what would you do for your grocery shopping? How would you do things? Or how would you take the meal plans and the recipes that we have talked about and start to kind of build your own plethora of cookbooks? Because the biggest thing is that David and I cook the same things on a regular basis. We're just switching up spices, marinades, and how it's cooked most of the time. So we'll jump between the charcoal grill, the smoker, the gas grill. We'll go to the Instant Pot, the oven, sometimes the crock pot for longer simmering things or whatever, or stovetop stuff, you know? And so we change things up by like having ground beef be, you know, a cream of mushroom stroganoff kind of thing, or a pasta sauce kind of thing, or a taco. You know, there's several different ways to have ground beef. And then when we do our like main meats, like I would say our beef, like our steaks and things like that, dominantly it's salt and pepper. Maybe there's a seasoning that we like that he'll throw on there, and then just grill it up and grill it good kind of thing. And then when it comes to like poultry, most of the time that might be either on the grill as well or in an Instant Pot cooking something together. When we do fish, it'll be kind of on a cedar plank if it's salmon. Sometimes we broil the white fish in the oven, but sometimes we'll put that on the grill too. But luckily, any grill options can be done in the oven too if you're just not super savvy with grilling. Or, you know, I know females don't do it as much as guys. That's the advantage of having a guy, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn or try. And then when we talk about pork, most of the time it's pork chops, and we'll brine them, having them sit in salt water for at least like an hour before we grill them, or David grills them. And then of course the air fryer is also another amazing tool to cook a lot of these things, especially if you're a single person. An air fryer is a game changer. It's basically a convection oven. So it's just a smaller little space. That's why it's really great for like maybe one or two people, because it doesn't have a lot of space to cook for a big bunch of people. So I have cooked some of my best pork chops in an air fryer. So don't underestimate the potential of an air fryer and what it can do. There's so many different combos out there, different tools. There's affordable ones, more fancier ones, like It's Okay. We have a Ninja one that probably cost maybe $100. I don't think it was totally terrible, but it pays for itself when you're saving money from going out all the time and you're able to cook things quickly. And then we'll cook things in there, like I'll have chicken patties or breakfast sausages or other things that can just easily be cooked in that, you know, put it in there and it's done, and it's got that crispy texture and it keeps the moisture in the meat too. So when you're thinking about how you're planning and prepping things, those tools are going to come in handy. Those, you know, things you make an investment in for some cooking tools, cooking knives, cooking pans, whatever, but it does pay it forward long term, especially when you're comparing costs to going out to eat all of the time. The other thing I would add to that is we're just trying to keep things simple when it comes to food, especially breakfast and lunch. Like those should be super basic and easy. Maybe dinner's a little bit more involved, But when we talk about meal prepping, some of the things that I've shared in the recipes in there have been for 6 to 12 servings. So the recipe that we're putting in there is showing you, and I just want to show it to you as an example so you can see what to do. I'm just trying to see what do I want to share? I think I just want to share my desktop. I'll just share my desktop so you'll eventually see me. That's totally fine. Let's see. And then you'll see Zoom and all the other things that I'm working on, but I just figured I'd rather have it be, is that the one that I wanted? Yes. Okay, cool. So for example, when I share some of these recipes from the Stealth Health Cookbook, I like to pick out certain protein sources where we're just changing up the seasoning a little bit, like keeping it super, super simple. Garlic Parmesan chicken, yummy, yummy, yummy. Not to make anyone sick here, but there's a couple of different options in there. But then when we talk about, like, for example, getting your breakfast all squared away, here is ham, cheese, and egg sandwiches. Like, here is basically your egg McMuffin situation. Here's how to cook it for 6 servings, basically 6 sandwiches. And that's going to cover you for the whole week, which is great. Grab and go. Now, obviously the microwave has an impact in food. It's not the most optimal thing to reheat things in, but in a pinch, it works. It's fine. We're not going to get too picky here. And you can see too, with these kinds of recipes, the 31 grams of protein, 27 grams of carbs, 18 grams of fat, 405 calories, that is falling right in about that area where, if you're in a deficit or not, is a kind of a, most of the meal plans that we provide are about 400 to 600 calories each, depending on what's in the stuff. So that's kind of nice to know that, like, hey, it's going to stay in that calorie range. So if you aren't tracking every single thing that's going into your body, you can at least have an idea with some of these meals where that calorie balance is sitting and where you're kind of falling. So when we go to let me move this menu. Sorry, when I do full screen, usually I have it on my second monitor. I probably should have done that, but it just drains the battery so quickly. So again, my drive here, this is what you guys have access to, the meal plans. As a reminder, when you come in here, there's 2 downloads. There's there's the meal plan itself and the recipe bundle. I just wanted to keep these together. That just made the most sense. So let's just pick up June Easy Recipes, for example. When you bring this up here, it's going to have the table of contents, and it's going to have all of the recipes that match the June, excuse me, I'm doing June meal plan. So the meal plan shows you the list of stuff to put in a certain order. It shows you the shopping list that you would need for all of these recipes if you were to do all of these recipes, and if you were to truly follow a meal plan from start to finish. And then it shows you some, how to meal prep for week 1, basically the preparing the oats, the Sunday evening to cook the chicken breasts, Monday evening to hard-boiled eggs, Thursday evening to store, Thursday evening or earlier to store in the freezer with the quinoa, if you're using quinoa or whatever. And then save half of the dinner meal on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday to be had for dinner the following evening. So it's showing you exactly how to make things stretch. But also, if you're cooking for more than one person, then maybe you won't have a bunch of leftovers unless you double the recipe. And then it does the same thing. So, and to me, again, how I would optimize this shopping list and these meal plans is I would find, breakfast, lunch, and dinner that you want to make off of this, and just add that to your week, whatever you're normally eating. That's why we don't want to throw a ton of different recipes at you where you have so much to do. That'll be super overwhelming. That's one reason why meal plans to me are not necessarily a fix for everybody, because it's so specific. And I've never seen, I rarely have seen anyone follow a meal plan from start to finish, but we provide these to give you guys variety and ideas, to give you a range of where your calories will be landing, and to give you some, because some people want some interest and change and things like that. Now, when I have at times uploaded other recipes, these are just recipes that I upload from time to time. We kind of click into here and find one that we like. And again, we've got chicken fried rice, all of the instructions there. The burrito bowls, again, makes 6 servings. So you can just kind of click through some of these to see if anything catches your eye. And then we have the meal prepping tips. I don't know if there's much more that needs to be thrown into this folder, but just showing you like how to batch cooking, sectioning things off, how to get started, how to shop for things, meal prepping, what you can make ahead, individually portioned meals, ready to cook basics, how long things last in the fridge, which is great. To me, if you're going to make breakfast sandwiches or breakfast burritos, for example, I would wrap those in foil and put them in the freezer. So if you know that you're going to make some things on Sunday night and have them last through the whole week, it's most optimal to freeze as much as you can just for freshness. But if you know you're going to eat it in the next day or two, it's probably fine sitting in the refrigerator. So just wanted to kind of reiterate some of those things too. And the other thing that I was thinking about too is like when you're going to the grocery store, I know it can get super overwhelming. There's kind of like, what are the tips and tricks to, be successful with the grocery store? And I think sometimes we underestimate how we can overcomplicate things pretty easily. We totally can, right? And let me just exit out of this. Sorry. Oh, it's not wanting me to exit. But what I wanted to get at was kind of like when you're going to the grocery store, like don't underestimate the fact that, hey, a sandwich with some deli meat and the stuff that you like, that's a fully balanced meal. That's totally cool. If you had a sandwich with turkey and cheese and lettuce and tomato on it with you just had to watch your condiments a little bit because mayonnaise can add up. Like usually mustard is fine. Like there's barely any calories in it, but mayonnaise and certain things, we just have to kind of balance out our fat content and just make sure we're tracking that especially if we're in a deficit. But don't underestimate the simplicity of a sandwich and a breakfast sandwich and a salad and having apples and cheese and some other things on the side just to kind of last for your day. If you put a good chunk of ham or turkey or something, or even chicken on a sandwich, you can get a good 4 ounces of protein on there, which is going to, produce at least 20 to 30 grams or so. Most of the time, what we're looking for women is to have at least a minimum of 30 grams per meal. And for men, that 40 to 50 range is fantastic. When you're consistently getting that distributed throughout the day, that protein, it's like protein synthesis. It's actually really great for your overall just muscle building and preserving muscle, et cetera. And Dr. Gabrielle Lyon is really good on explaining all of that stuff too. So maybe we'll do a podcast or another one of these calls around the protein distribution and why it's good to get it. What we want to do is get enough protein within a 24-hour period. So we're trying to optimize that time when you're awake. I like to get, fed within an hour to 2 hours of waking up, and then have a decent amount of time throughout the day where you're spreading out that protein. And then that overnight kind of just normal, natural fasting to let your digestive system get rid of everything, have your cells turn over, have your brain get a freshness. And that's kind of the cycle that you're trying to keep. So that's where I'm like, don't overthink a lunch or a breakfast thing. But sometimes if you are a grab and go, if you are doing things, you've got to prepare a couple of them, freeze them, have them ready to grab so that your weekdays are just faster and easier. So taking a couple of hours, like 2 hours or so on a weekend to kind of prep some things and cook some things to have them ready to go, easy peasy. Because then if you come home at nighttime and you cook dinner, well, then there's plenty of fast ways to cook dinner. The Instant Pot and the air fryer are one of them. Now, when you're going to the grocery store, we always want you to make a list. It's good for you to eat before you shop, because if you go on an empty stomach, it's very tempting to grab things that you shouldn't, or add, and increase your grocery bill when it doesn't need to be, because things are already expensive as well. Shopping the perimeter of the store is where your most optimal stuff is going to be. That's going to be the produce. That's going to be the meat and poultry and fish. That's going to be the dairy, the eggs, the cheese. And on the inside of the aisles, what would be best in there is maybe some of your pastas, maybe some of your breads, trying to avoid processed foods and junk to be in your house. Because if you have the processed foods and junk, we're going to always gravitate to eat that. Reading labels is going to be massive. We want to make sure we're looking at stuff that doesn't have this crazy ingredients list. That's why it's just easier to go buy some broccoli, it's broccoli, buy chicken, it's chicken. But sometimes when you get inside the aisles and there's a bunch of processed foods and stuff, those ingredient lists can get pretty nasty. So we want to make sure the sugar is not crazy and that there's not a bunch of stuff in there, as much as we can avoid. Then I would say, when I'm also reading labels, that checking for the sugar content, because sugar could be snuck in so many different things. And then of course, if you have any food allergies, obviously you have to read labels to double check for those kinds of things. And then I think that's kind of all I would say for, the impulse buys, that's why creating a list is good, sticking to the list, getting as much fresh as possible. And then of course, if you get frozen vegetables and frozen fruits, that's totally fine, because most of the time they've been picked and then flash frozen. So they tend to just hold their freshness and maybe even their flavor a little bit better. And then of course, storing them. And if you don't get to them, they don't go to waste. That's the biggest thing with vegetables and fruit is like, if you don't get to it in time and it goes to waste, that's such a bummer. But there are plenty of fruits out there that last longer, like apples tend to last a little bit longer. And then of course, if you find that you are wasting fruits and veggies, that's where I would say, okay, let's talk about frozen options, or let's identify, why aren't you eating them? Like, do we need to roast them? Do we need to cook them in the air fryer? Again, air fryer is great for vegetables. Are you including the fruit with your breakfast? Where can we make sure we're plugging some of those veggies and fruits into your daily intake? Because that's the most important. If we're making our protein source and we have our veggies and fruits, carbs, whatever carbs you want to throw in there that are not veggies and fruits, the pastas, the breads, the fun stuff, whatever. If you got that balance of protein and some fruits and veggies, then a little bit of fun is going to be totally fine and totally doable. But that's all I would say really for the grocery store. I mean, if you guys are experiencing more challenges with the grocery store, let me know. I just think we just don't want to overcomplicate things when it comes to meal planning and prepping or packing your lunch. Like literally the basics are totally fine. Like the sandwiches, the salads, the leftovers, like those are optimal. Remember with breakfast, like it doesn't have to be pancakes and eggs and bacon and whatever. It can be anything. The marketing of food has gotten things out of control, thinking that you're supposed to have a specific thing for breakfast and a specific thing for lunch and dinner. No, food is fuel. There's an aspect of enjoyment, but there's also an aspect of being like, let's see what's nourishing to us. And what's nourishing to us is hitting our protein targets, carbs and fats kind of falling wherever. And then if we're having challenges with those, becoming more honed in on, okay, what's that? Maybe we need to adjust the macronutrient split a little bit, depending on what your goals are. So hopefully this was helpful as a refresher to kind of go over the meal preps. We'll get some fresh meal plans coming obviously at the end of October. So I probably should get those on November 1st, get those ready by November 1st. And then if you guys have questions or things, or hopefully this was helpful, but I think when you're meal planning, check out the recipes where we've got several different servings, like the burrito bowls, the burritos, the sandwiches, whatever. Freeze things in foil that are like the burritos or sandwiches. That's the best way to kind of store them. Of course, if you had glass containers to put them in, that would be fine too, but we can only have so much room in a freezer sometimes too. So, and then with grocery shopping, it's like make a list, shop the perimeter as much as possible, go in the aisles when you need some odds and ends, avoid the sugary drinks, sugars, beverages, junk food that you don't need to have in the house. I'd rather you go, like if you're really craving some ice cream or a treat or something, like go out and get a single serving of it as opposed to having it in your house. That's just like a recipe for disaster. If we've got chocolate in the house, we are always going to the chocolate. And it's not that we can't fit in fun stuff to our day. We want you to fit in fun stuff to your day. But sometimes if there's a goal that you're going for, the bigger barrier you create between those, the easier it is to avoid it. So that is what was on my mind, or thoughts with grocery shopping. And if you guys have questions or thoughts or comments, let me know. We appreciate you all. Hope you have an amazing weekend. And I know some people are traveling right now and out of the country having fun. So I look forward to connecting with them afterwards. So again, thank you for your time and watching this. And we love you guys. Have a great weekend.